Was Muhammad a pedophile? This is something I hear all the time on my YouTube, and I'm kind of tired of hearing it. I wanted to say that when you're going around telling people Muhammad's a pedophile, you're not helping the cause. You're not helping anyone that might be interested in learning something, in having a dialogue, in reconsidering their opinion. You're actually going against all that, and you're shutting the door in their face. You're creating walls and barriers, and you're making people angry. Making people angry is not how you convince them. It just pushes them away, and it causes more harm. In fact, I wanted to say that there's many reasons why this going on about Muhammad being a pedophile is just dumb. Okay, well, the other thing is it actually brings more support to terrorists. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, look what these guys are saying, you know, and it's like, it's just so much hate that people don't want to talk about stuff like that on a day-to-day basis. Like, you don't need to jump to that being the first go-to. It's like, oh, I'm going to disprove Islam in 1 second. Oh, Muhammad was a pedophile. Like, you're not actually convincing anyone like that. You're not convincing any Muslims. You're not convincing anyone, actually, right? You just feel good about yourself. Ha ha ha, I said Muhammad's a pedophile. Look at these dumb Muslims, they follow a pedophile. Like come on, like, you know, there's much better things to focus on. I mean, look at my blog, look at my videos. There's so many other things you can look at, the mistakes in the Quran, the convenient revelations. In general, I mean, I don't think Prophet Muhammad had the best character, and I think he was a man of his time. I mean, that's what he was, right? But, you know, to shove that in people's faces, oh, he's a pedophile, that's not effective, right? And there's some problems with this, and I'll tell you why. What's the definition of a pedophile? A pedophile is a sexual disorder where adults get primarily aroused by prepubescent children, meaning, you know, like little kids, right? And when we look at the life of Muhammad, like, we're going to look at that and see, is that what we see with him, right? The other thing is that this is an issue of, like, moral relativism. When we look at that time period, this was a common thing. This was a common practice to marry young women, young girls, and young boys even used to get married. There's nothing considered abnormal about that. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's not even considered a problem from his time period. I mean, we have to be careful not to judge pre-modern society by today's standards. When they were living in war, you know, people would be captured and killed and taken as slaves, and we can't just, you know, sit here in a cozy lifestyle and say, oh, look, they got married so young, like, oh, that's so terrible, that's so evil, right? I mean, you have to realize people got married for safety, to bring the clans together and the tribes. So it's not totally fair to judge, pre-modern societies by modern standards. You have to look at it in context, right? And, you know, it does show, though, that, you know, this is a good example of something that, you know, we now consider it's not correct and it's not right, but back then it was considered okay. Yet it's something that's allowed in Islam, marrying very, very young, you know. However, we consider it taboo and problematic now because we've actually civilized ourselves, and we've actually put restrictions that, you know, how can a child, you know, choose to get married, right? Obviously a child cannot make a decision like that. They're too little. So, you know, these are things that we've learned and we've improved ourselves, but, you know, Islam and other religions are stuck in time, right? You know, not to mention, even in the Bible, there's a lot of troubling things, because I notice Christians love to mention this. Oh, Muhammad the pedophile. Well, did you look at your own Bible, by the way? Like Moses in Numbers, he tells the Israelites to kill the Midianites and to kill all the men, kill all the women. Oh, but wait, keep the virgin women, the ones that didn't have sex yet, keep those ones for yourselves. Good morals, right? And the same thing in Judges 21. I mean, anyone can Google skeptics Bible, right? And you'll see there's a lot of bad things in the Bible too. So don't be coming here and saying, oh, Muhammad pedophile, and you yourself in your own holy book have a lot of problematic things. I mean, if you look at the Jewish rabbis, the commentary they've made on the Talmud, and in the Talmud it says that children can be married at the age of 3. And I'm not an expert on this, it doesn't make much sense to me, but if you look it up online, there is references to very young ages of marriage. Again, These are things that we've actually learned from, right? We don't do it. In Shakespeare, Juliet was married at 13. Oh, not to mention in the Bible, Mary was pregnant at 14, okay? Now let's look at the US, the history of the US. In Delaware in 1960, not that long ago, the age of marriage was low, with documented cases of brides as young as 7 years old. In Virginia, a 9-year-old bride was documented in 1689, 9 years old in the US in 1689. Now I want to get back to, now that we've talked about, you know, what in our own backyards we've been doing recently, and, you know, criticizing Prophet Muhammad for it, let's look at, see exactly what he did. So we know that, you know, there's a lot of, okay, I have a lot of doubt that the hadith literature is correct and authentic. Even the most authentic collection, Bukhari, it was written 220 years after the death of Prophet Muhammad, okay? 220 years. Now, out of I don't know how many, 2 million hadith or something, so was it 600,000? Only 2,000 or so he decided were good enough to put in his collection. And even then, we're talking like a big gap between the time that he said, Prophet Muhammad said it, and then someone narrated it, and then someone narrated it, and someone memorized it, and he said this person said this, and that person said that, and that person said that, all the way to Bukhari 200 years later, 220 years later. And then Bukhari writes it down and says, to the best of my ability, I think this is true. But I'm trusting that this guy said that this guy really said this, that the wife of the Prophet really heard this, and she didn't make any mistakes in what she said. And we have another narration that sounds similar enough that, you know, these two kind of correspond to each other. And this person, they know this person, they met this person. So they have some kind of, you know, kind of archaic rules they use to try their best to try to figure out. But there's a lot of holes in this in the hadith literature. So if you're going to take it at face value that he married Aisha at 9, you have to look at the other facts. All of his other wives were much older. Not much older, but I mean, the rest of his wives were all 17 and above. I mean, according to what we know, right? Safiya was 17, and, you know, the rest of them were in the 20s, 30s, 40s. Of course, this isn't the best. I mean, if you look at him, it doesn't look like the best example, you know, marrying young girls that were beautiful. Like, I mean, Safiya, it's narrated clearly, and Aisha herself mentioned that she was beautiful and she was, you know, attractive to the eye. So, yes, you know what? He had a lot of beautiful wives, young wives. Aisha was the exception, okay? She was the exception. She was his best friend's daughter. He married his best friend's daughter at a very young age, which we would find problematic. And it is troubling because she was so young, but this was something that they did back then. So, you know, again, if I have to say it, this isn't the best point to harp on. You're not going to convince Muslims like this. And I wish you would stop saying it, okay? And I've given you lots of examples why this is something that is not going to win over anybody. If you really care about, you know, winning people to the truth and showing people that Islam is false, this is the wrong way to do it, okay? Think about it. Use wisdom. Use your intelligence. Look into things, look into points that have depth. Look into the mistakes in the Quran. Look into the stories in the Quran. And of course, the Bible has the same problems, by the way. This is how you will convince people. Not by saying Muhammad is a pedophile. This is stupid. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of problems with this because they're just going to come back to you and say, well, she wasn't actually 9. Okay, so what's a better point? A better point is that Islam allows you to marry young girls. This is an example of, you know, relative morality at play. Muslims will say Quran has absolute morality. Islam gives you absolute perfect morality. This is a good example of allowing people to marry young girls. It's not right. You know, when you marry someone at that age, right, and especially if they get pregnant, they can get a harmful condition called a fistula, F-I-S-T-U-L-A, where the baby gets stuck. And what happens is it actually ruptures something inside her, and then for the rest of her life, she won't be able to hold in herself, like her washroom. She won't be able to stop herself from going to the washroom. It'll just all come out, all the pee and poo. So, you know, this is actually something that in Ethiopia happened a lot, and, you know, those women become stigmatized. But, you know, thankfully some doctors went over there and did operations for them to fix it. And, you know, modern intervention can solve this problem by having a C-section and saving the woman from getting ripped on the inside. But marrying young women is bad, okay? But going on about Muhammad's a pedophile, that's not a good point, okay? There's much better points. I'm with you on this. I want people to see why Islam has problems and why it's not true. But quit with the Muhammad the pedophile thing. It's not helping. All right? Thank you. Those of you, shout out to those of you who say, I'm a secret Muslim doing taqiyya. Shout out to you guys. You guys have no brains, but shout out to you guys. I'm sure I'm going to get a couple of people saying taqiyya, taqiyya. Good for you. Good for you. Go on with your conspiracy thinking. Take care. Bye.